guys, so today I thought we would do a quick little educational video on the terms psychopath and sociopath and kind of compare them and see what the difference is between them. Now, first disclaimer I want to point out is that these are not terms that are used in psychology at all, nor in the legal system or anything. They're what's called pop psychology or pop culture terms for antisocial personality disorder. These terms are no longer used in the psychology field as a diagnosis or anything at all, mostly because of the negative connotation to them and the stigma around them, much like the terms crazy and insane used to be used back when mental illness was first being treated. That was technically the diagnosis that they were given, but we don't use those anymore because of the negative connotation. It kind of changes every like 30 years or so. It seems like there's a new word that comes around because of the stigma that's always attached to the previous word. So that's kind of why these aren't used or anything. They're not technical terms, they are pop culture terms, often enforced by media like movies and TV and things like that. But that doesn't mean it's not interesting to look at and to talk about and see what the difference is, you know, even from a media standpoint, even though these are not psychological terms. So we're going to talk about them. First thing that I would just want to say that they are similar in is their diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder. They usually have that in common regardless. I did a whole video on personality disorders. If you want a more in-depth explanation of what antisocial personality disorder is, I will link it up here so you can check that out and down below. But basically the primary symptom of that is not understanding others or respecting others' basic human rights and not knowing the difference between right and wrong. They usually have a lack of empathy for others. Also, last disclaimer, that just because they have this diagnosis or they are considered a sociopath or a psychopath does not mean that they are violent. The media often portrays them as violent, serial killers, things like that. Even I kind of hinted at that in my last video, and I apologize if I offended anyone who has antisocial personality disorder. It does not mean that they are violent. Usually when someone has this diagnosis, they are manipulative or they will, you know, use others to benefit themselves, and they often engage in reckless behavior, but it does not mean that they kill and torture other people, like innocent people, for no reason. So don't believe all the horror movies that show like serial killers that have antisocial and that they're always killers. It's not always the case. Violence is not a requirement to be diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder. Okay, now we're gonna move on into the differences of psychopath versus sociopath. So the first major difference is that psychopaths are generally born. It's likely a genetic predisposition and they often have a physical brain difference than other people. And sociopaths tend to be made by their environment. Usually it's due to childhood trauma, and I'm not saying that psychopaths haven't experienced childhood trauma. It's very individual. It's based on the individual, but generally sociopaths do not have a genetic predisposition to be that way or have a different brain chemistry to make them behave in those ways, whereas a psychopath typically does have a different brain chemistry and they're just born that way. Another difference is that psychopaths generally cannot form close attachments to other people because they just don't have the proper understanding of others to really do that. They can fake it really, really well. A lot of people who are in relationships with psychopaths generally believe that it is a loving relationship and it is reciprocated, but usually they manipulate the relationship or they use it for their benefit, and it's usually a pretty shallow relationship. And sociopaths can form bonds with others that are usually like-minded. They have to be really similar, and that's because they do have a small ability to understand right from wrong, which we'll get into, but generally they don't form attachments, but if they do, it's very rare and it's usually with like-minded people. And also they find it difficult to hold jobs and maintain normal lives, whereas psychopaths can maintain jobs and like have a normal life. Usually from the outside you really can't tell that they are a psychopath. Sociopaths tend to be a little bit more obvious in their behavior. There are personality differences between the two, which kind of ties into the relationship aspect of their lives. Psychopaths can be seen as charming and trustworthy. They're very good actors that put on a show and, you know, usually for their benefit, whereas sociopaths are very agitated easily and can have violent outbursts. Not always violent, but they can have these rage outbursts because they're angered really easily. Now, when it comes to committing crimes or engaging in the behavior that they have this instinct to do, when psychopaths do this, they do it in a way that minimizes the risk to themselves. They've thought out every detail. They've thought out even alternative plans in case something goes awry. Sociopaths are very unplanned and impulsive in their behavior, so they will engage in more risky behavior usually, and they typically don't think about the consequences of their actions. I saw the term on this one website, which I'll link all my resources down below like I always do, but I saw this term, cold-hearted psychopath, hot-headed sociopath, which I think sums it up pretty well. Psychopaths generally don't feel emotion, and sociopaths feel a lot of like anger and rage. So when it comes to being dangerous, I mean, I hate using that word because, as I said in the beginning, it doesn't mean that they're violent. But as far as being the most, I don't know how else to say it, but psychopaths don't feel any remorse for their behavior. Even, they don't really understand what they've done is wrong. They're just doing something to benefit themselves. They often pretend to care about you when they don't really, and so that's where it can be kind of a little bit more dangerous because they don't have remorse, even though they do plan out things so meticulously. That whereas a sociopath is so impulsive, you'd think that would kind of be worse in a situation because they're unpredictable, you don't know what they're gonna do. But if the psychopath has planned something so meticulously, usually there won't be very many flaws in it and they won't get caught. Sociopaths do have the ability to understand right from wrong a little bit. They typically have a really weak conscience. They can understand that their behavior is wrong, but that does not by any means stop them from doing it. So those are typically the behaviors that differentiate between a sociopath and a psychopath, and I hope this was somewhat educational. I don't mean to offend anyone by, you know, being interested in this subject. This one is a little bit less psychology related only because they're not actual psychology terms, so they really don't differentiate between the two when they're given a diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder. I just want to reiterate that and for you guys to keep that in mind, that these are not psychological terms used, so don't think that these are scientific or anything like that. They are not used anymore. And don't believe what you see in the media and on TV and things like that often generalize psychopaths and, you know, sociopaths, and especially like American Psycho. Those movies typically paint a picture of what they are, but that's not really the case 100% of the time. They can be that way, but usually most people who have antisocial are not violent. I just want to reiterate that. They are not violent. Also, it's usually pretty hard to tell if someone that you know is a psychopath or a sociopath, and please, by all means, do not try to give someone that title that you know, and don't try to diagnose yourself with that, with antisocial. It's just not healthy. That is not the purpose of this video, so please do not extend this video into your personal life. I feel like that was a video full of disclaimers, but I just wanted to get those out there because I wanted to make sure I give you all the information that I have, but also the disclaimers that these are not meant to offend or be, you know, scientific in any way. So I hope this video was interesting. Let me know some more psychology-based topics down below for future No Makeup Mondays. Have you guys been liking all the psych videos that I've been doing? Please let me know down below and hit the thumbs up. I hate saying that, that's so stupid. But if you want to, you know. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.